Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of VeeFam Sessions. My name is Mr. Messer, but you can call me Rob, and I am so excited to be here, joined by veteran mom, unbelievable supportive V-friend, and more importantly, unbelievable human, Miss Savannah Demery. SavyD, Savy, how are you?
I am super honored to be here, and I'm really excited about this.
So excited. Like, you're one of the best. You're one of the best. I don't know. We're just going to get in there and just say it. So excited to chop up and get your origin story. You're so supportive. Just like the other day, yesterday I popped into a stream and you were giving away stuff. Like, you're one of those people. We have a lot, it's that kind of community. I'm sure that'll come up. But you're just always there and you're always doing it. You're just always showing up for people. So I want to treat you like everyone else, so let's take it from the top. Can you give us the quick 55 and your support of the show, so you know the assignment right now,
I do.
which I love you for. Can you give us the
I might
quick
have
55
practiced a little.
second cliff notes of your story before you ever heard the word VeeFriends?
So before I ever heard the word VeeFriends, my husband told me to tell you that the easiest synopsis is it's like a really, really crazy Lifetime movie. I think of my life in phases. I didn't hear about Gary Vee until about 2010, around November of 2010. And so I had a few years before I even knew who he was, but I think of my life in phases because really, I mean, that's the only way I can break it down where it's like short enough not to take up like a whole thing. But I was born to two people who were both more interested in where they could get their next hit than they were about kids. I was the only child of them, but I'm not. I have 6 siblings older than me and 2 siblings younger than me on one side and the other. From 0 to 6, I lived with my biological mother and my stepfather. And those were my most broken years from my mom's choices in life. When we escaped from that situation, there was like interim housing and placements that was really hard. And eventually I was placed with my biological father from the age of 6 to 11. And those years were hard again. Different kind of abuse, but definitely brokenness altogether. Those were also the years that I attempted suicide the most. The first time I remember ever wanting to die, I was 5 years old. And my stepmother had thrown me into a pool because she was upset that my biological father had left me with her. And she wasn't happy about it. And I remember thinking that the world was going to go dark and I didn't have to hurt anymore. After that, living with them for as long as I did, I have plenty of scars and plenty of stories. But at the age of 11, I had a DARE officer who actually finally saw me. She saw the things that happened to me, the bruises, the bones, everything else, and she saved me.
This is at school.
Yes, I was probably I want to say it was 5th grade, because between 5th grade and 7th grade, I actually went to 13 different schools. That's kind of another phase. Even though it was 2 years of my life, it is very jumbled because of how many moves. I ended up in the foster system and I went from one place to the next without any choice or say, just based off of where they wanted to put me at the time. At 12 years old, I met the woman who I call my mom, Terry. She is everything to me. My daughter has her first name, Maria, as her middle name, but it wasn't an easy situation to be in that either. From 12 to 18, I was in the group home that she ran. And though we had a special connection, she still had to treat me like a group home child. From the time that I was 12 till I was 18, I worked first under the table doing dishes in the back of restaurants, wherever somebody would let me for whatever they would pay me, until I got, I'm originally from Southern California. And so at 14, you can get a work permit. And I mean, on my birthday, I was in that office getting my paperwork done. So I've never not worked up until I got sick in 21. At 18 years old, I emancipated from the foster system. I was in my senior year of high school. And at that point, I had gotten really sick just before I emancipated. I was in the group home. And they do let you stay to finish high school. But I got really sick and I ended up in the hospital. And it was at that point that they had done some testing. I had pneumonia. I had a couple other things wrong with me. And they, at that point, had told me that I would never have children because my internal organs were so damaged from the abuse that I suffered when I was younger from my stepfather. And so it was just the understanding that that was the life that I was going to live. The group home didn't really take me to the hospital. I actually ran away to the hospital so I could get treatment because I was so sick. And
And
it was
you
at
said
that
you're
point
fourteen here.
uh when
No, no, sorry.
when
Go.
I was 15 when I got sick. I was 18
Okay.
when I ran away.
Okay.
Right before, well, no, so I ran away when I was, that's a good one. Actually, I should probably back up on that one. At the age of 14, my freshman year of high school, it was at the end of my freshman year, I had a friend hide my stuff and I actually ran away and I took a Greyhound bus to Arkansas from Southern California. And I went to live with my biological mother who was out there. And when I arrived, she informed me that she actually was still with my stepfather. And so that was a fun little surprise when I got there. I spent 6 months or so with them working asphalt with the gypsy crew out of Arkansas. And we traveled around and we were actually in Colorado when I had an incident with my stepfather where he punched me and I fell down a flight of stairs in a hotel. And it was at that point I realized I have to go back. I can't be in this place. And so I did. Took a Greyhound bus back to Southern California, turned myself in. And I remember this was kind of the moment that I realized that my mom, Terry, that she loved me more than just an obligation. She came into the receiving home, it's like a orphanage transitionary house for kids. And she came in and she gave me the biggest, hardest hug I had ever had in my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And then she slapped me upside the back of my head and said, "Don't you dare ever do that shit to me again." And it was in that moment, for the first time in my life, I knew somebody slapping me meant they loved me and not the opposite. But she then pulled me back into the hug after, so it wasn't too bad. But from 14 to 18, she got really sick. She was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And so she had to step back a lot. I went to summer school. I caught up. I actually ended up graduating high school as an honored graduate. I
Wow.
have newspaper articles and stuff from that. I graduated with 20 extra credits over what I needed because I took additional history classes in my junior and senior year. And I also did I believe out in this area, they call it Head Start or something. But
Okay. Yeah.
basically where you take college courses at
Right.
the
Yeah, I've heard
community
of that.
college while you're still in high school.
Before
I wanted,
before I know we're turning a corner here, and I
yeah.
just want to pause and I want to pick up from this exact spot in a second. I just want to head back because I mean, first of all, my thank you for sharing all of that, and my heart breaks just for that little girl hearing all of that. And I know there's you just blew through it, but there's deep
Oh yeah.
stories,
I'm trying to go fast.
hours. No, I know, I appreciate it. I get stuck on timelines a lot. So you said you were feeling suicidal at 5, and a
Yeah,
dare officer didn't pull you in till 12.
right.
That's 7 years, and that's an eternity for a child because
It is.
time is just different. At no point during that era at school or whatever, what have you, no one saw you, blew the whistle in any kind of way, did any
No.
intervention.
I know that some people knew. I know that some of the teachers knew. You know when people look at you with that look of pity
Yeah,
and then they turn away.
yeah.
There were bruises. I had broken ribs, broken bones. My stepmother's favorite was rat poison pellets. And so I had days where I would be at school and I would be violently ill and have to go home. There were signs, absolutely. I smelled. I actually wet the bed. So I'm going to like give you a quick warning actually before I go on, because I will be brutally honest. Blatant, I'm not holding anything back, because I spent too many years being so ashamed of everything that has happened in my life because I thought that it made me weak.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taken me a long time and a lot of revelation and a lot of Jesus to realize that this was never about me being a victim. It was always about me being here at this point where I can tell somebody this. And whether it's somebody who now pays a little closer attention, or someone who tries to make a little bit more of a difference, or somebody who felt the same things that I have felt, regardless of their circumstances, to know that they are not alone.
Mm.
So I will answer any question and I will tell you everything, because I want everyone to know and to understand those things and how important it is that there's light.
I love you because there's unfortunately thousands of little girls and boys just like yourself, and still, even if they're grown up in adult bodies now. Love you for being so brave. Goodness, there's a lot of jarring things,
Yeah.
but the fact that the adults can look at you in that shape,
I
you know,
had,
smell you and say, "Hey, something we have to double click into this situation."
oh yeah. Well, so I was a bedwetter because of the internal damage that I had suffered and the trauma I had suffered when I was young. I was a bedwetter up until I was probably about, I want to say until I was about 13. Then I started, once puberty hit, I actually, like, things started to develop and I started to have a little bit more control. I learned how to, you know, not have as many accidents or incidents and what triggered them, things like that. And probably last time I remember having an accident was probably about 15 when I was in the group home. So it's pretty old, and kids can be so cruel. Not just adults can be as well, but children, they don't know any better. So the hope is they can be taught better. But, you know, I definitely was a pariah. I was not a clean kid, not able, I lived in severe poverty. And so whether or not we had water was different from week to week. Um, my, the adults in my life who should be taking care of me, they spent their money on drugs or gambling, bowling, collectibles as well, which was a big thing. It's part of
Mm.
the reason why, even though I knew about Gary in 2010, late 2010, I did not actually get into VeeFriends until 23, December or November 23, because I always promised myself I would never, ever get into any type of collecting, because the only experience I had ever had with it was I didn't get the McDonald's toy when we got the first of the month paycheck because it was a collectible. We would
Mm.
go to swap meets and yard sales and things like that, and then we wouldn't have food. And so for me, it was never going to be. Obviously, you can see that's changed.
That's changed.
Correct.
My question
But
is, what was the moment that it did change?
so in 23, when I first joined, it was actually really funny. I was, well, I guess not funny, but I had gotten those Gary texts for like 2 years at that point, and
Yeah,
I had always
he's
ignored anything that wasn't like a post specific or things like that. And so when I started seeing the stuff about VeeFriends in 21, I knew about the box breaks. And my husband and I were getting to move, ready to move from where we lived in Western Washington or Eastern Washington to move to Western Washington. And I remember telling him, I was like, "Hey, babe, you want to? What do you think about me spending like $4,000 on a card box of collectibles?" And we both laughed because we both knew how ridiculous that sounded, and we would like never, right? And so I was like, what are these things made of gold or something? That's ridiculous. He wants people to buy online pictures. Like, Gary's smart, but this just seems out there. I was
right.
like, yeah, I'm just not going to even deal with this. It's nowhere near anything I want to even touch or be around. And so I got really sick. I was in the army at 18. I Did end up graduating high school. A huge shout out, for about 3 months, I lived with a teacher. She was my my theater teacher. And her husband ran the performing arts theater that I was a part of. In high school, when I did get back, part of that was I joined the high school I was at, had what they called SAVAPA, is what it was called. It's Southwest Academy for the Visual and Performing Arts.
Hmm.
There's a high school within a high school. Think like that. Oh gosh, what's the name of it? I'm blanking right now. Where they are a musical theater high school.
Glee?
No, 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 no. The one, there's a movie. It's a musical movie, and it was like really High School Musical,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
Is that it? Yeah. Think High School Musical, but within a like school that's on the border with a lot of gangs as well. I did that. I found my people, my weirdos. It was amazing. It was the first time in my life that I had people to talk to at school. I didn't spend, I mean, up until ninth grade, I was on a first name basis with every librarian I ever met, because
Mhm.
libraries were my safe place for so long. And so it was an amazing experience. But Mr. and Mr. Newhouse wanted to make sure that I could stay in the Performing Arts Academy, graduate high school, do the show that we were doing. And so they offered me their home and took me in for 3 months from when I turned 18 in October of 2006 until it was probably more than that. So for October, November, December, January, February, March, April. So 7 months. And then it was in April of that year, I got my first apartment just before I graduated from high school. I got my first apartment. I was working in the theater on the weekends and going to school. I graduated. When I graduated, I spent a year. I was working 3 jobs. I worked at KFC. I worked for an insurance broker, and I worked for the theater. So
Mm,
Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, I would work at the
you were working.
theater. And then Monday through Tuesday until 4, I would work at the insurance office. And then from 5 to 10 or 11, I would work at KFC. And I was also going to community college full time to get my degree, because my hope was to get all my prerequisites. I was on Section 8. I was on food stamps.
Yeah.
I was
Are you? I have a question. Are you the new houses like you through all of that darkness, like you said? There are these slivers of light. Your
mhm.
mom and not bio mom. What was her name?
Terry, but she's my
Terry. That's
mom.
right. Terry in the new houses. Are you in the moment? Were you able to absorb that light and kindness? Like, wow, like there is good in the world, or is it not till? And obviously, your perspective on the world, for rightfully so, was probably very different as it is now. Or is it now that you're looking back and be like, wow, they were angels?
Definitely, I definitely absorbed the moments of light when I had them. I will say that I did, like, so I used to get shipped off for like long holidays and summers. And during those, I would go to one grandparent or another. Actually, the closest ones, my biological father, my paternal grandparents. I spent a lot of summers with them, which was very important to me. I was very close with them, and those were moments of light for me as well. Those kept me alive when I didn't think I could be. When I was 7 or 8, I tried to kill myself again by slitting my wrist the correct way. I knew how to do it. I checked out a body book from the library to learn what veins were in your body,
At
how it
7.
worked. What's that? At 7, yeah. It was actually at that summer, so they shipped me off. I was in the hospital for a little while. I recovered. That summer after that incident, they shipped me off, and they didn't want me back. My bio dad and stepmother, they didn't want me back. And so they were trying to work it out for me to actually live with one of the sets of grandparents. And they literally, I mean, it was to the point where one of the grandparents put a newspaper ad for help to get me clothes and school supplies and everything else. And there was a ton of people who donated to that. And it was just like this beautiful experience to know that so many people were willing to help at a moment's notice. And I had everything ready. I was ready to go. Maybe about a week before, there was this huge argument about the fact that they would not be able to claim me on their taxes anymore. And so they drove down and took me back at that point. And so that was definitely one of the harder ones. My grandma and grandpa Inglis, who are pastors, they were very important to me. I spent summers with them. I spent summers in their church. which there's a lot of good and a lot of bad. I like to say that's where I got all my church hurt, but it was moments. I had an aunt and uncle as well. I used to dream that maybe someday they would adopt me because they were the most amazing people. My Uncle Jim, who's a Marine, and my Aunt Mary Ann, his wife, they would take me on trips with them, on vacations to different places. It was the only time I ever went anywhere besides going to relatives during those breaks. But I went to Mexico with them. I went to the first time I ever saw LA, and I stood outside of Mann's Chinese Theater. And I remember thinking, I will be on the stage someday, and this is where I'll be. This is where I want to be. And I had so many pivotal experiences that I do credit very much so with keeping me alive for so many years until I found light that lasted. But yeah, I definitely have those moments. I will also say, like, I do also look back and
Mm.
see even more moments that I didn't recognize before.
How or when do you talk about this? Because you're a mom.
Yeah.
How do you talk about this with your own kids?
Um,
I mean, have you thought about that?
I do talk because I don't want to lie to my children, but also there's always that knowledge of you want to tell your children the truth, but you also have to do it at an age appropriate level.
Sure, yeah.
And so one of the things that I've always tried to do is when they ask me questions about my childhood, if I ever did, that's one of the things I think kids kind of consistently do is, did you ever do something like this when you were little? My kids have asked me about the scars on my body they've seen, and I've explained it to them that some people hurt others. And, not everybody who has kids is actually a mommy and a daddy, that sometimes they're just their parents. And I think that having my mom in the situation that I do, my mom Terry, it makes it a little bit easier because it's a lead way for them to understand that even though she didn't make me, that she's still my mom. And that's because of how much she loved me. And so knowing what that looked like, it's a better segue into it in some conversations as well. But to the extent that I'm honest with other adults, no. Obviously, there will come a day where, those questions might come up. And if they do, I will sit down and have those conversations with them
Mm.
for sure. Because I want them to know, I want to give my kids everything, but I also want them to know that part of them understanding how to be kind to others, how to lead with empathy and love, is knowing that what they say and do can hurt others in ways they'll never understand because of what they might be going through in their own lives. And
Mm.
so my children want for nothing, but I always do try and keep them grounded in the world and in knowing that not everyone has that same privilege. And because of that, that our actions matter even more.
It's so admirable and commendable to know just a little sliver of what your past and to know how sincerely you do look for the light. It's fascinating and it's so admirable. And I guess that's a good segue into here because we're
Yes.
in a place where there is a lot of light. I mean, there's people, we're all flawed. We know this. But overall, net, there's more good people here than not. Doing good things,
Absolutely.
leading the traits of the characters. So let's take it back. What was it that finally kind of pushed you in? We talked about the collectible thing, but
Mm-hmm.
what was the first step over the line into here?
Um, so I was in the Army. I'm a veteran. I was a logistics operations specialist in the Army. And in 2010, I was hit by a mortar round, which caused TBI, as well as while I was with a local national duty. We were driving back from the exterior portion of the base that we were on, the FOB. We were hit with a long range mortar round from the surrounding mountains past the village that was local to where we were at, and that resulted in some shrapnel wounds as well as TBI and some spinal cord damage. And so after that, I was on recovery for a few days, and I went over to the USO because I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. I My mind was all over the place. My son was 5 months old when we left, or 6 months old when we left for Afghanistan, my husband and I. And he went to live with my mom military while we were deployed. And so I had him back home. My husband was also in country, but in a different part, doing medevac operations, which was hard on him. And so there wasn't a ton of communications because we were just busy. And so I went to the USO. I was like, I got to get out of my room, got to figure out something to do. And I was perusing this rickety old pine bookshelf that was made. And basically, whenever people would travel through the bases, you know, you take a book, you leave a book kind
Sure.
of thing. And so I was going through the titles trying to figure out what looked interesting. And I saw one of the few books that had a jacket on it, Crush It by Gary Vee. And so I was like, okay, I mean, this looks interesting. Why not? Um, why now is the time to live your passions, I think is the phrase. And I had never even imagined, like, I call it survival mode. I spent most of my life in survival mode. So to have this idea that I might be able to do something that I was passionate about, that was like insane to me. But I took the sink and I ended up reading the book. And I followed Gary Vee the whole time, mostly. I wasn't big on social media for a long time. I was always working. I got out of the Army in 2012, went right to work. I mean, I literally was on leave before I even got another job. I never quit one job without having another kind of situation. And so I got sick in 2021, and the doctors, I mean, really, it started in 2019, but it took till 2021 to get to the point where there was no amount of caffeine or alcohol or nicotine that was going to keep my body going. And so I ended up on the hospital a lot, and I ended up not being able to work anymore. And
What were you
so
diagnosed with?
it took them a while to diagnose me, but the initial diagnosis was it's a mast cell activation syndrome. So essentially what it is that your white blood cells in your body, they send out mast cells, send out white blood cells in order to heal your body, bacteria, viruses,
Yeah.
allergens, right? So it's the little person in your brain, in your body that says, hey, something we need to go attack is happening right now. Let's go attack it, take care of this. That runs through your bloodstream. White blood cells, mast cells run through your bloodstream. Well, with mast cell activation, essentially it got turned on and can't turn off. So from one day to the next, I might be able to have bread or dairy or eggs or one thing or another. And the next day, it'll put me into anaphylactic shock because my body has decided that that day eating a breadstick is going to kill me. It could be the air I breathe. It could be anything else.
Wow.
Ironically, the number one cause of death for people with mast cell activation syndrome is suicide. The second cause of death is anaphylactic shock. Yeah.
Gee.
So super not great. There was some questions that didn't get answered. They couldn't figure out what was going on with that part of it. And it took until I was actually here on the West Side in 2022 when they finally realized that I had masses growing in my breast tissue. And I had them growing in since they believe at least 2019, late 2019. The fact that I can say that when I had my double mastectomy, that there was absolutely no growth whatsoever outside of my breast tissue is a miracle. It is nothing short of divine intervention.
I remember that, hearing that.
Yeah.
That's
So,
amazing.
but now I 2023, November 2023, I was sitting here in this house that we had just bought. My husband was at work and I was laying in bed because that's where I spend a lot of time, especially in the winter. And I get a text from Gary Vee and it says, hey, come join me and my friends on Fanatics. This is really special. I still have the text message. I look back at it. And even though I had really ignored this for the most part for so long, for some reason I felt compelled. And I won't even say, I don't keep it a secret. I am a believer. I'm a follower of Christ. That is something that happened when I was 32, just shy of 33, where I understood that the church was not God and the fact of the matter is that everything that I had ever been through in my whole life, I finally understood there was a reason for it that was greater than the pain of it. And I had prayed previous to November. I was very alone. Moving out here, we had moved away from the church congregation that we were close with, that we served with. And so I just felt so isolated. And I prayed to God to lead me to something that would help me be alive again, that would help me feel light and feel hope. And when I got that message and I followed it, and I came into a fanatic stream, and I've heard Anne say it, I've heard other people say it. You get into a fanatic stream, or a, now there's whatnot, but you get into a VeeFriends stream and it's a different place. It's not like all the rest of them where you have people who are just negative and conniving and out for themselves. You get into a place where people are looking out for each other. And one of the first things I witnessed during that stream was somebody was saying a lot of negative stuff about Gary. And he was met, that, or he or she, whoever, that person was met with responses about empathy and kindness. And hey, like, we get it. Not everybody agrees. That's okay. But if you feel like you're hurting this much, you know, maybe you need somebody to talk to. What's going on? Like they actually cared. And that was a thing that was hard for me, because I had always, even throughout everything, I had always believed that we should love others, because I didn't want to ever be the reason someone hurt. And that was not the best trait or quality when you're in the army, and tends to get you made fun of a bit when you care about people, especially when it's people that aren't like you. And so to see this in a real world situation, it was mind blowing. And I was on Twitter. I actually had a different Twitter account when I first got into VeeFriends. And I never really,
You
I
have to give us
signed
the
up.
handle. Give us the handle real quick.
So it was at Not So Savvy Living on Twitter. And I literally was like, I got on there every now and again because people say, oh, Twitter this, and I'd go look at it or whatever. But Twitter thought I was a bot, because I started interacting with people so much. I started commenting, I started adding friends, I started sending messages and reposting and doing all this stuff. And then my account got banned, and then I couldn't get it unbanned. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so then I was like, crap, well, I need to get like a new Twitter. And a friend of mine, whenever we text, her phone auto corrected Savy to Savage. And so I was like, I like that. So SavyD was like, okay, that's perfect. And I opened up the new one and like tried not to get claimed as a bot again. But yeah, it was actually really funny. I was like, oh my gosh, like maybe I'm not supposed to be in this community, but it worked out.
It did. So November 23, you caught the bug.
Mm.
Fanatics Live. That's a kind of a flex in its own right to know what
Well,
Fanatics
and
Live.
you know what? I'm only 2 weeks older than Soggy. So
That's right. That is the
literally,
Sagi era.
yeah, I'm only a couple weeks older than Soggy from my understanding. Because I thought that when they were on Fanatics, I didn't realize that they'd only been streaming at that point for what, a month or so?
Yeah, I think they
Maybe
started
that?
late September. I think was the first one. I want to
Yeah,
say.
so it wasn't very long because it was early September, October. No, it had to have been late September or early October, because for my birthday I got a box. So it was early October
Mm.
that I started, because it was before my birthday that year that I started. So my months are off. But yeah, I'm only a couple weeks older than Soggy, so I'm
That's
really
that,
proud of that. Or
that's
younger.
funny. So I know the collecting was a sore spot,
Yeah.
but did it just become because of the environment and the community and the kindness, and it just had that potent different flavor? Was that like did that push you in the like, okay, this is different, this is okay, because you caught the bug hard. Like, look, I mean,
Oh,
look at your wall there.
listen, there might be some evidence. A little. There's my I've been kind art wall too on the side. I don't know if you guys can see that.
I bend kind art wall. Amazing.
Yeah. And then we've
Another,
got 3 other pieces that are around the house. So those are all I've been kind.
if you're just listening to the podcast, she's got about 63 or 64 pieces of Benkind art on the wall.
Yeah. Got like
Um,
shelving now.
so like, what was it? Was it a character? I know you have a whole bunch of characters, kind warrior. Like, what do you think? Now it's been a minute. Like,
Um,
what do you think pushed you? Because some people come leisurely, and some people just jump in head first, and you jumped in head first.
I did. You know what? So after that, I don't know if I even bought anything on that first Fanatics stream, but I started to kind of like watching a little bit and stuff. And then, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember who told me. Somebody recommended I go to the Courage show because they do stuff as well. And I was like, cool. And so I went, oh, Tina, art by Tina, for anybody who remembers. She's not really active anymore. She's doing lots of her own stuff, but the bubbly buzzard, I started talking to her, and she's just like this really sweet person, and she's lived a lot through her life as well. And she was like, hey, I'm gonna do some art stuff. I'm actually streaming live because I'm painting Gary V for 365 days. And I was like, oh, that's like super cool. She goes, I'm actually gonna do a live one on the Courage show if you want to come by. And she like gave me the information how to get there. I was like, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to watch. And so I did that. I went there, and again, even like take out the buying aspect, it was just community that night. And so it was just listening to her story, listening to Josh, listening to other people in the hearing or reading other people in the chat and stuff. It was like, wow, this is like for real. Like people are talking to each other. They're asking questions. They're caring about each other. They're being supportive. Like it was just like this mind-blowing thing that off of Gary's purview, because there's always that question of how much of it is I'm going to act this way for Gary to notice me and think that I'm living the life he touts, and how much of it is these are people who are of like kind being drawn together. And I really saw it like continuously.
Mm.
And so I ended up buying my first thing that I bought was community wise might have been a pack on one of the Fanatic streams, but the first thing I bought intentionally was a box of Halloween pins from Josh's show. That was in November. So the first time I bought something was it was after the Halloween release because he had the Halloween pins. And I hit a gold vibing vampire. And it was like that feeling of hitting something that people were like, oh, that's special. Like I was like, ooh, that felt nice. And I got the stuff in, and my daughter saw it, and she was just like, this is awesome. And so then we went to the website, we started looking at characters, and I saw the Kind Warrior character, and it was just like, I had seen it pulled on cards and stuff, and I thought that was really cool. But I started going through all the characters, and I was just like, my gosh, like, this is amazing. And then the idea of Kind Warrior was like, that for most people sounds counterintuitive. And in my life, I know what that looks like to be made fun of for kindness and be told that it's not a strength,
Yeah, you are the
that it
kind warrior.
doesn't make you better. Yeah. And seeing that it was something that was revered in this, I was like, I feel it. And the tagline for him is, you can be kind and strong. And it was like, kindness is not a weakness. I've tried to live that for my whole life. And it was the first time it felt like somebody also saw it. And not just
Mm.
somebody, but like somebody's, like a whole community saw it. And I was like, this is the kind of world I want to live in. And of course, when Ella saw everything, she was like all in. She's like, I want this. And I was like, this one's mine. You know, maybe I'll get you some cards or something. And then we found out it was a game. And so I was like, you know, maybe I should buy a box. My birthday's coming up. I talked to my husband about it. I was like, I know it's like $200 on eBay, because they were still selling them for like $250 on Fanatics at this point.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, I can get one for like 225 or 250. I think the first box I ever got on eBay, I paid like 230 for it after tax and shipping. And so then I was like, cool. And I had only been going, I had never heard of the moon. I had heard of Tom and I had heard of Jay. And part of the reason actually I was looking at the compassionate catfish. Here's an alpha story for you. My grandfather, he used to make his living. He's a veteran as well, and he suffered from PTSD really bad. So he couldn't hold down a job, but he would make his living fishing. And so when I spent summers with them, we would go out we'd get up at like 3:30. My grandma would make us like burritos and stuff, and she'd pack us sandwiches wrapped up and put it all into the cooler and stuff. And we'd get all of the gear we had got ready the night before. And 4:30 in the morning, we'd be out on the water in the Salton Sea. And the big thing there, it's a man-made lake that is fed by the Colorado River. But they supplied it with catfish.
Mm.
And so we would catfish for hours until 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon where it got too hot. And we'd go back, and then he'd gut everything, clean it up, and then go down to the marina and sell whatever he could. And I had so many talks with him. And one of the first things he ever told me, and I think they knew, I know they knew about a lot of things, but they chose not to say anything. They had a lot going on themselves. But my grandfather told me, he said, no matter what happens to you in life, the first thing you always do is ask yourself, how can I show compassion to others? And that's how you succeed. It's not about how much money you make. It's how people around you feel when you're around. And it was one of the most important lessons I learned in my life. And it was a pivotal moment. So I actually thought about that for my grandfather. But I found out there was a huge catfish maxi. And I kind of was like, well, that's his thing. I don't really like want to compete with somebody else to collect stuff if I do want to get like certain character items. And I was like, and also I can't like take somebody else's like belief in something. And it seemed like at that point, everybody had their character for a very important reason. And I felt like I want to make sure that whatever I choose as the character that I really want to represent the most, that I make sure it's something that, I won't want to end up just giving all the stuff I find to somebody else for it. Um, so that was,
There's always room.
there's always room. That is a lesson I have learned actually since then.
I love. First of all, thank you for sharing that. That's a fantastic story, and I don't want this to come off that I'm not excited about what's everything that's happening, the
Yeah.
comic and everything. Please, no one take that that way because obviously it's exciting. But we're coming to a time where these characters are gonna be developed, and like compassionate catfish is gonna be likable or whatever. Bad intentions might be an asshole. I don't know, but like it's gonna be out there, and everyone's gonna have the same kind of vantage point and opinion about that. But it's going to affect everyone's take on all the characters without being developed. Like you just had that amazing story of why you like compassionate catfish because it's the catfish or it's the compassion or both. And that's kind of how everyone has found their characters, right? Through
Mm-hmm.
that, or maybe something happened to them, a life event that made them gravitate toward those characters. So I guess this is a long roundabout way of saying like it's like very personal, and once the characters develop, it's very out there. So I like this little era for stories just like that. I'm
Yeah.
like I love hearing really why people chose their characters, and I've gotten to do that a lot on this show. But I feel like there's going to be less of that once it's like, oh yeah, like this is a huge character. It was featured in comic book, so that story made me strike a chord to because I've been thinking about how this is like we're changing here. This is we're talking March 6th, 2025, Topps Chrome era, BTC before Topps Chrome era coming into an end.
Oh my gosh. It's going to be ACE or BCAC, isn't it?
I know.
Before Chrome and after Chrome.
I was the first person to document it, so I'm super proud of myself. But it's
Everybody make sure you clip
real. It's
that.
a real thing in this multi-decade timeline. It's just gonna be a little blip,
Mm-hmm.
a little tiny freaking blip. So
Yeah, that's so
you are
true.
early to the station, my friend.
I
Where
do feel
So
early.
where, I mean, you got courage
Yeah,
to the moon. You ultimately found out that to the moon existed, and
I
you
did. Yeah.
became a thing, and had one of the most phenomenal streams prior to your surgery. Or was it
Yeah.
after? Or was it before? It was before.
It was before my surgery when they did the stream. I want to
Uh,
say it was like the week or two before.
just and so many. Just that's a synopsis of the community, like coming together, helping someone, generosity, kindness, all of the things. But really special when that happens, especially with like you know the entertainment value of Tom. Yeah, someone just said in the chat, Tom got wasted. So for a good
Uh,
cause.
yeah, he was, but you know what? It was so funny because we were on when he did the AT stream a couple of days ago. He mentioned that that was one of the things like they thought he thought he was in trouble for it. He did get in trouble for it. And I laughed because like that is one of the most pivotal moments of my life, not just in this community but ever, because it was first time that on a scale I saw people care about me without expectation. It was this mass understanding because of the actions of others, starting with Tom and Jay, but not ending there, that I didn't have to provide something, that I had intrinsic value, which was a very foreign concept for me before the VeeFriends community, something I struggled with for a long time and I still struggle with. It's something I'm trying to understand in my faith, but it's something that I still have to work on. I have a lot of healing to do still, but that people just wanted me to be okay. Not that they wanted me to give them something, that they wanted something from me, that I had to produce something, that it was just, we care about you. And we're thinking that Tom called me before that stream, before he announced it, to ask me if it'd be okay. And it was funny because I was really struggling with the idea. My husband was with me when the phone call happened. And it was like, I don't want anything from anybody. And I remember Tom saying, this is not just like, you have to understand that we care about you
Mm,
and you matter. And this is a really hard time. And so many people want to do something, no matter how far away in distance. And I remember my husband saying, believe that you're worth it. He mouthed it to me while I was on the phone with Tom. Believe that you're worth being loved by somebody. And so I told Tom, okay. And he goes, dang, I had a whole thing prepared. I thought you were going to fight harder. And I was like, normally I would, but I'm trying because I just said not even like that long ago before that, that sometimes you have to also accept kindness because how else can people give it? How are we going to see more of it in the world if you don't accept it either? And I was telling somebody else that, typical words always coming back to bite you right in the ass. But uh,
yeah, that's so special. And I know from firsthand experience, from hearing things privately and just from publicly, like you've paid it forward time and time and time and time again and blessed so many people with so many things that are meaningful. And maybe it's not the physical item, but that just the act and knowing like I'm seen, someone cares about me. And, sometimes those things happen when people really need it. So it's
absolutely.
it's that domino effect. Yeah, that was a very special thing. And I was what was I doing? Oh, I told you I got rid of StreamYard, so I was going through old recordings, and we were doing a VeeFam Network night, just
Mm,
just hanging out, and you had popped up like in your hospital gown, like laid up in bed, like
yeah.
right after your surgery, and everyone was like, Savvy. Everyone was like happy to see you, but also like, what the hell are you doing on stream? Like,
I know. I was really
take
upset
over.
I had to miss that week of trivia. I feel like I would have placed better if I had those points from that week, but what can you do? But also, it was funny because after the surgery, it was a really rough process afterwards. There was a whole situation where I didn't get pain meds for like 6 hours after my surgery. So it was kind of hard. But when I finally did get the pain meds, my first thought was, Oh man, it's Thursday. I've got to talk to my VeeFam. And I'll tell you right now, as high as a kite, I was pushing that morphine button real good
Yeah.
until it just wouldn't let me touch it anymore. And I was like, oh, I gotta go say hi. Like,
Uh,
and it's funny because I actually rewatched that at some point because I was like, oh my God, why do they keep letting me? I had spinal cord surgery in 2015 and I still
Jeez.
have to reread those Facebook posts I made because my husband thought it was a good idea to give me my phone while I was hopped up on medicine.
Oh my goodness.
And it's like, I didn't he not learn the first time you cannot give me my phone when I am hopped up after a surgery. I will use
You
it.
got to share some of those posts, maybe on an anniversary on Twitter.
I will. That's they're good ones. They're pretty funny.
We could talk about the community forever. I feel very blessed to be part of it. I feel like I can
Same
speak
piece.
for you that you're blessed. You feel blessed that you found it. What does that? It's a word that gets thrown around so much. People abuse it. Even people in this community abuse it and hide behind it. But what does that word mean to you?
I'd like to preface that this has changed over the years, but I now know without a shadow of a doubt it means hope. Means hope. Because in order to hope, you have to have faith. You have to believe in something. You have to trust. And even when I feel like I can't rely on me, I feel like I can rely on others here. And I have hope because no matter how dark things get, I know there's going to be a point of light. I know I can find a stream and laugh. I know I can watch Tom and Jay or Josh or you or Rips. And there are some times where I go into streams and I don't even say anything because all I need is just that community, that little bit of hope to get through whatever it is I'm in that day.
I love that, and it's so true. It's comforting just to hear those voices.
Mm-hmm.
You posted something on Instagram, July 10th, 2021, and this struck a chord. I love this quote. You said, "Trying to live every moment as though it will be someone's last memory of me," which is super powerful. Even more powerful knowing your story. When people in the community think about you, um, I know you're going to live another 100 years. I know that, but what do you want them to?
I only have to live until July 7th at 88 years old. I can die. July 7th, 2077. So it'll be 7777. My husband
That's
and
what
I
you're
have
aiming
already
for.
agreed on it.
Okay.
If we're
Well,
still
there.
healthy at that point, we're going to go up in a fighter jet. Figure we can
Okay.
go both at the same time with that.
Well, there's some alpha,
Just so you guys know.
man.
Sorry.
If you actually, that's gonna make for a great clip if you actually go up in the jet in '77. We could stitch this. What I didn't see that going there. What when people think of Savvy, what do you want them to say, think, feel?
Yeah, whether I'm living or dead, my greatest hope is that people will look at me and they will see Jesus through me, that they will understand that light overcomes darkness no matter the circumstance. And I want them to think of joy. I said it for community, but it matters again. Hope, light, I guess, light. That's a good one worder for it.
I love that. So many, couple more, and then we'll get to our last segment here. This is always a tough question. It's tough for me to think about. But who is someone in the community, or maybe just it could be anyone. I won't even limit to the community, but someone that you feel maybe it's on your heart right now that just you want to give a rose to, give a shout out to. Maybe they did something kind for you. Maybe they said something 8 months ago that struck a chord with you. And I know it's not fair to limit to one person, but if if I shoot that at you, who are you thinking, or what are you saying?
It's like my husband says, fairs for pigs and horses, right? Yeah, this is probably the hardest question you asked. When it comes to VeeFriends stuff right now, I think that, man, I feel like I should have had this better prepared, but I actually did. I did go over the idea of who I would say, and it's one of the hardest things to say because think of so many memories and so many moments. But you know what? I'm going to have to go with Austin Green Beans.
Mm.
So he's hilarious. His mind is so beautiful. I had the absolute pleasure and honor of spending time with him in the Airbnb at VCon, and how he's young, but he is such a beautiful soul, and he cares so deeply for others. And I saw it up close and personal, and he is so willing and open about so many things. And I know that he's been picking up his content stuff as of late, and I'm super proud of that for him as well. But Green Beans for sure. I think that he is going to be one of the people that we see bringing people together, like so many of the legends in our community have. I think we're going to be saying a lot more of his name sooner than we think, as far as being synonymous with getting people into community.
I mean, that's a great one. I'm a big Austin fan. And yeah, I just as you're saying that, I'm thinking I met him randomly VCon 2023, and I'll never forget. He was like, "Yeah, I just drove here by myself. He didn't know anyone. Drove there by himself. Maybe slept in his car. Maybe I'm making that up. I don't know. I don't know.
I
Or a
think he did at
motel.
one point.
But yeah, I was like, wow, that's really cool. Um, Last question, then we're gonna get to the end. What character, you know where I'm going? What character do you need to spend more time with?
Secure Sparrow. I know this one.
That's a freaking good one that no one's ever said.
Oh, really?
I
Ooh,
don't
I
think
didn't know
anyone's
that.
ever said that. And it's as soon as you said it, I was like, holy shit, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Why?
A lot of it comes from my traumas, which I'm still working on healing, because I've spent like the 99.9% of my life packing everything down. I'm just in the last couple of years trying to let things out and kind of process things. And so, one of the byproducts of spending your life being told that you are nothing is that you truly believe you're nothing. I was so nervous coming on tonight because I just kept thinking, like, I don't belong in the same category as people who've been on here before. And Soggy, Andy, Rips, Corso, Daniel. I mean, just all of these amazing legends within a community who've done so much. And so for me, it was one of those, the Secure Sparrow for me is it's one of those things where I know that that's one of the things I struggle with the most. I know that you're not supposed to like live for the validation. That's more of a statement. But because of who I am, like what has been built into me for so long, I second guess myself. I'm not secure in who I am, even though I like to think right now there's like this warring part of me, who I was trained to be and who I am. And I'm working really hard to just be who I am and to be happy with that and to trust it and to be confident in it. But I'm not completely secure in myself, and I doubt myself very often for no reason. I know that I'm probably not alone if I say, like, you know, you have an interaction with somebody and then you phrase something a certain way and then you go, oh crap, maybe they took it that way, and you don't hear from them for a while, and then you're like, oh my god, they're mad at me because they thought maybe I said it like this. Like, how do I fix that? Or maybe they're not thinking about me, and if they're not thinking about me and I bring this whole thing up, then they're going to be like, oh my gosh, she's been thinking about that this whole time. That's weird. And so then it kind of goes on a spiral, and that happens with like a lot of stuff. So I'm working on that part of me. And so I think that the Secure Sparrow needs to be my friend for a while until I can figure out how to trust and be secure in who I am.
Mm, that's such a phenomenal answer. I appreciate you so much. And you are, there's no, you're worthy. You're loved. You're special, and we're so privileged that what you shared tonight. And by the way, I really hope you write a book or do a podcast or something where people really that need to hear that and to hear that it's okay and that there's light can access that information. And anyone that listens to this now can hopefully advocate when they hear or see something, which inevitably it's going to happen in their own world, can say, you need to talk to this person. You need to listen to this episode and reach out to at SavyD or Savage 7D. That's now our responsibility. So, because so many people like you from 5 to 12, there are signs, and often, like in my short tenure, like teaching, like people are really good at hiding it often. But
Hmm.
if there are signs and the odds of you seeing it, if you're in that position, like you gotta be the one, like
Yeah.
the teacher, like Terry. We just need to step up, and we all have different paths and histories, but now we know your story and we can use you as an advocate because I know you're willing to help and spread that light because people feel alone. People feel like they have nobody. So I really appreciate you doing that and being that, starting the ripple of telling your story because we don't know how many people it's going to help. So thank you for
If it
coming
helps,
on.
that's
Yep,
all it takes, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we love you. I love you. Wish I could hug you right now. We'll do that. We'll do that soon. But without further ado, you know what's happening next. Micro macro spitfire with Savvy D. I'm gonna ask you a whole bunch of questions, rapid fire. You could answer yes, no in the macro, one word answers, or elaborate why in the
Okay.
micro. Here we go. Favorite teacher you had and one reason why. Oh, this is an easy one.
Kelly Newhouse and Ron Newhouse, and I pretty obvious.
Uh,
That one I already gave you all the macro on.
the Time Machine Tiny Ogre book game. You know book games.
I do.
There's 15 of them. What could it be? What do you think it can be traded in for or burned for?
So because Gary always says that the S1 is the alpha, that specs are the alpha, I think that maybe it would be something from his collection at mint price.
That's a good one. Secret talent you have that most people don't know.
Oh goodness. I did do the talent show, so everybody already knows that I sing. I oh man. See, this is where being too honest can be a problem, right? Oh, I am double jointed. I'm
Not
hyper
after dark yet.
mobile. Have I told you guys that one yet?
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, so I can do that thing where I can like bend all my fingers.
Okay.
And then like also I can I don't know if I can show you very easily here. Hold on. Okay. Can you see my arm? Everyone
Yes.
can see it?
And if you're not listening, you need to subscribe to VFam Sessions on YouTube so you can see the video. Oh, you're doing the turnaround thing. My goodness. She did it. She did it.
So
That's a
I'm
secret
super
talent.
bendy.
You're bendy. I can't
Now
I
that I'm
can't
in
do
my late 80s, the fat's gotten in the way, but the things that I still can move, I move.
you were standing up and both of your hands were going to the bottom of your shirt and I didn't know where you were going with that.
Oh,
Favorite piece of physical VeeFriends memorabilia?
does it have to be I actually have a just one like caveat question to this. Does it have to be something that came from VeeFriends official?
No.
Every single note that has been sent to me I've kept. And if I
Mm.
had to get rid of everything but one thing, um I don't have them on the wall right now because we are packing to move, but I do have everything here. If you've written something to me and sent something to me in a package, whether it's on a post-it note, written on cardboard, the inside of a box, I have everything. And it all means a lot to me.
I It's likely that there's a post-it note for me. I hope there's a post-it note for me.
There is actually one thing I do still have up is the I have not packed this one yet. Probably one of my favorite Mr. Messer.
Let's go. V Fam After Dark. That's a good one.
Yeah. And it's got Rob, Chell, Savvy, and then Soggy's on here too. VeeFam After Dark in the TV.
That's amazing. All right. P or S? Pins or stickers?
Pins.
Favorite concert you've ever been to?
Charlie Daniels, a USO tour in South Korea.
Very, that's a cool one. Favorite VCon memory?
That's a hard one. You know, I'm gonna have to take this one for me. Being on stage, getting that 5 minutes when they did the open mic sessions and being able to talk to people for that 5 minutes and just say what I said. And actually, no, that's not true. Damn it.
Which, by the way, earlier in the conversation, you said you dreamt about being on stage in LA, and you were on stage in LA.
Bro, oh my gosh.
I'm just
I
saying.
did not even make that connection. My like childhood dream right there. Bro, that is so cool. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be thinking about that now, Rob. Thanks. Um,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
favorite VeeCon memory
It's old
was
news, August 2024.
August 2024. My gosh, that is amazing. I literally have chills right now. My favorite VCon memory is every time somebody tried on the crown that I made.
Such a good
It
crown.
just,
We
I
gotta get this of it.
perfect strangers. You know how much time I spent in the bathroom because I'd go pee and then I'd be in there for another 20 minutes just taking pictures in the bathroom and just
That's
kids
amazing.
and adults alike. It was just so much joy and I loved it. And the
Such,
here's a little bit of alpha for you just for this. Not only will the crown that is on my head with some adjustments be making an appearance in Texas, but our princess, our Fair E, will also have a little piece of her own
that's
because mom
amazing.
cannot wear a crown without her having one too. So
I would love to see a picture of Tom in either crown.
oh, 100%. I have to make a Tom tiara.
Yes.
I've got time.
Favorite movie?
This is a really hard one because I do love it's like with music, I think genre matters and there's something within a category, right? But if I go, what movie could I watch over and over and over again and never tire of? I'm going to have to go Princess Bride.
Good one.
There's love, there's mystery, there's comedy. It's got everything you could ever imagine.
Great answer. Wine, beer, or coffee?
Coffee.
I think I know this. I'm assuming your answer, but here we go. Bougie hotel or hiking and camping in the woods?
Oh gosh, I love being in nature. I'd have to say camping in the woods.
That's right.
You were wrong, were you? You thought bougie
No, no,
hotel?
no. That's where I was going. I feel like I
Oh,
know
okay.
you well enough that
Yeah,
you don't.
I'd have to go hiking.
All right. Would you rather have a 2 hour group dinner experience with Gary, you and 8 other people, or a 10 minute one on one?
Me and 8 other people, no
Why?
question.
Why?
For me, I want everyone to have the opportunity, as many people as I can have around me to live in a light moment. And knowing how Gary is, 2 hours is more than enough time for him to talk to everybody. And whether he picks them or I pick them, we're going to get value out of that. I get to meet people he picks for whatever reasons he does, or if I get to pick
Mm,
them, I get to bring people along that just get to do something good.
great answer. And if he was right here right now, one question had to answer it honestly, what would you ask him?
I know that he says that he doesn't do it for anybody else. He doesn't live for the validation, doesn't worry about other people's opinions. I think that I would ask him if he's ever taken a moment to just really stop and feel what he has done to really I know he goes so fast, his brain's always working, but he talks about patience and that too. So, if he's ever had a chance to just sit and really breathe and think about what he has created and how much joy and light and love exists now because of him wanting to do this and bring people together in this way.
Mm, that's a great question. You crushed this. You crushed this. You
To
know.
be fair, um, I have listened to a few of the VFam session episodes, like all of them.
Who's
I
one of your
love.
favorites? What was one of your
Oh,
favorite episodes?
honestly, the first Corso interview was phenomenal, and I was like really like shocked at like how regular everybody who works for VeeFriends was at one point, other than Rips who went straight into it, right?
Yeah, Rips is a wild man.
Yeah, he's a wild man, but I really, really liked Corso's first interview. Up until recently, that would have been my answer as far as my favorite goes. But I have to give it to Daniel. I have to give it to Daniel because he gave us that like tidbit tea about Andy and his Instagram country account, which I'm still looking for, by the way.
Oh, Daniel's second one, the last time.
Yes. Oh, his second one. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. His first one was good too, but his
That was
second one I appreciated because I felt like since he had done it before, he thought he knew what he was getting into, but you kind of threw things up on him, and I really appreciate that. That was fun. I
mm,
think that's how we got the alpha. But
yeah. Daniel's. severely, severely underrated.
Oh, 100% accuracy. And it's really funny. It's so interesting to hear the first interview and then to hear the second one. Because there's a change. Like, in the way he talks about VeeFriends and the way he talks about the community. There's always consistency in how just wonderful he is as a person and how much he's cared always. But just, I don't know. There's just something in his voice that's, I want to say it feels like there's this deeper connection to it that he sees more, knows more, that it's a little less of the possibility of being like the honeymoon phase for VeeFriends
Yeah.
and being more like this real thing that's changing lives.
Mm. Yeah, and like, that was a year and a half removed. Like that's a long time.
Yeah. Especially in this ecosystem.
Right, exactly. I want to give thank you for everyone that's in the chat, watching live. If you are listening on the podcast, the recorded podcast, the recording's over, but we're gonna give the opportunity for the chat to ask Savvy some more questions. That's not gonna be on the podcast. The only way to get that is to be here live or to subscribe to YouTube. So if you haven't checked out VeeFam Sessions on YouTube, please do. That's VeeFam Sessions. There's no H in Sessions. Chat, if you want to ask Savvy any questions, I'm also going to throw the invite, the link to come hang out in the VeeFam chat. If you're not in the VeeFam chat, say I
I
want to be in
have
the
to
VeeFam
say, it
chat.
almost seems serendipitous that we're bringing back VFam After Dark after my VFam Sessions
Yeah,
episode, because I feel like we get real dark real quick.
we
We need to get the Roach up here because she hasn't done one of these yet.
is the,
See it in there?
I mean, hey, there's no what's the right word, prerequisites to come up and play um and chat VFam After Dark. But chat, any questions? How late you going? I got to shower and put the wife to bed. I got to put that up. First comment to show on stream. I don't know. I don't know how late I'm going.
We'll always wait a little longer for you, B.
I'm. It's gonna be done right though. I don't have anything planned. I have my box of voting game cards and some liquid courage.
Ooh.
And I'm not talking about Josh.
See, I have to do things sober now because apparently I can't, like, I can't do any alcohol anymore. My body
Well,
doesn't process it well anymore. And it gives me like, it feels like it's trying to escape from my intestine, like the
well,
hard way.
you're better off for that.
Honestly, I was never a big drinker anyway. There you go. Anne's given us a timeline. That'll work always.
Jen, love Jen. Thank you so much for sharing your story. You are an amazingly strong, caring woman. We are so fortunate that you're part of the V fam.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. That's so kind.
I think that that's one of the hardest things too, because it's like who was talking about it the other day? Maybe it was in the book. I'm listening to a book right now from Bessel van der Kolk. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk is Swedish. And it's called The Body Keeps the Score. And it's like blowing my mind.
Mm.
He has a trauma center that he started in the like early 90s. Thank you, Lord. All rise.
Thanks for being here, Lord.
Oh, Greek, Mike, you've seen it. Okay. Yeah, I'm listening to it right now, and I'm kind of like listening to it while I do this puzzle, but it talks about all the different types of therapies and medicines and ways that people treat trauma, and it's understanding that like there are physical repercussions to trauma and things that you hold, stress, anxiety, whether it's a short period of time or a long period of time. And
Yeah, and it festers in your gut.
yeah, yeah, 100%. And I think for like a long time, like I was like, like all of my issues don't have anything to do with my trauma, right? I can deal with that later. I kept telling myself, put that stuff off because I'm trying to get my medical stuff that I need to get done first. And now I'm realizing that, I mean, there is a very high chance that a lot of it has to do with my PTSD or my CPTSD. And or at least it's compounding it significantly. So you
It's
guys,
funny.
I'm telling you, if it's on your list, I do recommend the audiobook though too, because he reads it himself and his voice is very soothing. So
1 to 10. We have great comments. No questions. I'm gonna ask a question. One, if on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is absolutely, one is no way, and 5 is like maybe, haven't thought about it, but maybe. You can't say 7. Where are you on the possibility of writing your own book, your own autobiography?
10.
10. Good.
Actually, it's probably be 11 because it's already in progress.
I love that. I was hoping you were saying that.
So right now the working title is She Was Lost, which I feel like has a good ring to it. We'll see how that goes. I am so anal retentive about things that I think the biggest thing I struggle with writing is not going back. One of the Stephen King advice bits is you're supposed to like write for an hour without correcting anything. You just get it out, right? And I try and do that, but then like it just irks me to see those little lines or to know I made a mistake. It doesn't look right. So then I'm like, I go back and I correct it. So it takes me so long to get through something because I'm doing that. So, but I've got let's see, got my laptop right here actually.
My sister, my younger sister, she's had a traumatic past. Part of it shared because family stuff with us, but she's been through some shit. And she when she wrote for hours, and I didn't read it, but she showed me all the pages. She said it was just an unbelievably therapeutic experience.
It is actually a therapy that they do for those with traumatic past. You write it out over and over and over again, and then you read it over and over and over again, and it desensitizes you. I have to look at what the name of that one is. I have a notebook with different things that I'm like garnering. Actually, I if I'll give you an alphabet. I'll read you the first paragraph, the intro. I set out to write my history. I set out to heal my trauma. What I discovered was that my healing journey was not just meant for me. The purpose of my pain was to be shared with the world. Though some parts are harder than others to get through, I implore you to push through. The moments of darkness are powerful because they will show you just how powerful the light is. Brokenness is not permanent. Fear is fleeting. Love can heal. And there is no darkness that light cannot overcome. And Jesus saves.
That's a vibe. That is, what a way to open. And I'm so happy that I mean, I alluded this to like 20 minutes ago. I was like, you need to do this because so many people need to hear that paragraph. If nothing else,
Honestly, it's
just
actually funny because I see so
bars.
many asking for a friend. You know what? Actually, that's one thing that's hard is I do have to be mindful. Because of the fact that I've actually had issues. So when I started my TikTok, my stepmother found me on there, and when I started my TikTok, I was kind of doing it as like a therapeutic thing where I was telling bits of my story in like parts. And my stepmother actually found me on there and started harassing me pretty significantly and making a lot of comments and things like that. And because it was like the first thing I did, it's not like I knew anybody then. And this is before I was in VeeFriends. And I kept telling myself, well, I can't block her because, that's like hiding and that's being weak. And then I did eventually block her because I discovered and I realized that it was so much stress for me. And it's one thing that did make me realize that I need to heal better. And so I am grateful to it for that. That there's still that little girl who's afraid. I mean, like, I know how to kill somebody with the palm of my hand, but yet I'm scared of this person who I have to figure out how to look back on the little girl that I was
Yeah.
and look at what she went through and see the people who hurt her and understand. That's one thing I will always say is that, it's not an excuse of behavior, but the people who hurt me were people who hurt. I know that my stepmother, she was a woman who was taking care of somebody else's child, who her husband was not there for her. And she had a drug habit, and that didn't make things better. Um, and and she grew up in an environment where she was hurt often as well. I don't know. She grew up in a very strict, very visceral, like Christian environment. I use that word. One of the reasons I don't call myself a Christian very often is because of the fact that people use religion as much as they use any other excuse to be unkind, to
Right.
hurt people. And I hate that. One of the things that Christ himself never did was use his name to hurt people. And so for me, I am a follower of Christ and as I go. But it's just one of those things where I know that she had her own traumas that never dealt with, and she had no patience. She had a lot of stressors. And like I said, this is no excuse because I know who I am and the things I've dealt with, and I would never. But it is saying there's a part of me that understands forgiveness comes to a point where it has to be for you because the other person is going to do what they're going to do. All of these many years later, and she is still bitter and sad and angry. And
Mm-hmm.
she was making comments about how I'm a liar. That never happened. One video I talked about a fight that her and my biological father had, and she said we've never fought in our whole entire marriage. Which anybody who's ever been, I mean, whether you're married for a week or a year or 10 years, that's bullshit. No matter what.
I'll call
Her name is
Cap on
Lady
that.
Tremaine. Listen, half about. So I do have to, as far as your question, Stephen is asking for a friend, fiction or nonfiction, right? I've debated about writing a fiction um, story to get my story out so I'd have plausible deniability. But I've done a lot of research into legality. And one of the things is I don't have to get permission to tell my story. That's one. And that's even if it involves others. The big thing with that is that nothing I say, I have to be able to prove anything that I claim. If somebody wants to like try and sue me for slander, um, I have to be able to provide proof that the events I talk about are events that happen. And so I am able to do that because I have all of my records from the time that I got, when I emancipated from the system, as at least smart enough to do that. I got all of my record from the time I have records from when I was 3 years old, 3 or 4 years old is the first record from my history. That's a police report or a witness statement or any of that or the other. And so everything I have that I'm putting in my book, I'm going to do a nonfiction book. It will be an autobiography style.
Good.
I will share a lot of details and everything I have photos, I have copies, I have files, I have police reports, I have witness statements. Uh,
Wow, you got it all.
I did try and make sure that I was as prepared as possible because I feel like sugarcoating any aspect of it to be more palatable is understanding that that's maybe not the person I'm trying to read. It's definitely going to be something that's hard to read,
Yep.
but it'll be something that the people who need to hear it will understand it. I understand that there are details that are unnecessary, and if that's the case, I won't include them, but I will absolutely be as honest and open as possible. And one of the biggest things I do want to say too, I struggled with this for a very long time, but I finally learned how to express it in a way. I am not a fan of when people go, they've had it harder than me. What can I complain about? Right?
Oh,
Hello, lovely.
How are you
oh,
guys?
I was just saying, you would understand that too. Oh, God. I love that painting of Frida Kahlo.
Thank you.
so
Never
you're
say,
always smiling, just ear to ear, and love it.
Thank you. Honestly, somebody recently told me something about that, and I was like, honestly, I think when you've been through a lot of things, you realize that you just have to become everything that you're looking for, to be honest. And
Yeah.
I think that life becomes so much better. Like, there's so many people who are like, I always see you smiling. Like, it seems like you never go through anything. And I'm like, damn, that's such a compliment. Thank you.
truth.
Yeah, smiling's just so, it's one of those things that's just so powerful. I'm trying to smile more.
How's your guys' day going?
good. Today was
I'm
actually a
good.
good day. It was super sunny the last 2 days here. So, and that's like never happens in Washington. There's rarely 2 days in a row where it's not like it doesn't rain, you know?
Yeah.
I Oh, green beans, what's up? There he is in the chat.
Yay!
I need to. One of the traditions I'm doing is the first card is the person that was just interviewed. So
Ooh,
that's what I pulled. Who would who would stand by you in a bar fight even though they know you're wrong?
oh my
I don't
goodness.
know.
Well, and we're the only three on screen. I think Soul would, because
Oh
honestly,
no, no. I that you this is open for anybody.
oh,
We're
is it
not
open?
started yet. This is not an
Oh,
official we're playing card. This is just for anyone in VFam.
um, who would stand by me? I mean,
Uh,
I don't
I,
But
think
I
I
thanks for
I got the
believing in me.
perfect I got the perfect person. I would have to say Frodo.
have.
I
Oh,
feel like he would
Tab!
get or
The Frodo.
Tab,
Oh, that's
Can you
like
good.
Fro
combine
and
them?
Tad, like they just would get down.
100%. She could know for a fact, based off of like inside information, that I am the wrongest of wrongs. And she would be like, okay, I got you. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
that's a good one. Yeah,
Froze.
the does. Good one.
What
That's a
about you?
I don't want to. That's a good one. Give me a second. I'm never prepared to answer my own question.
I'm gonna open the door real
Rose is
quick.
a good one. I'm gonna try to go in a different direction. I just
Okay.
give me a second. By the way, is that a Fire Nirvana shirt? Is that like a vintage piece?
Uh,
Let's go.
Honestly, I'm so into like the vintage teas and stuff. I feel
That's my
like
whatnot. My grand opening show is next Thursday.
I seen that. I'm gonna have to attend that. I might have to drop. I'm a little limited on my funds right now because all
No,
of
I don't
my
want you to buy anything. Just bookmark it.